on treaty land. This land is steeped in the rich history of the First Nations, such as the Hattaway-Wendourong, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe peoples, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. There are many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people from across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. The Regional Municipality of Niagara Police Services Board stands with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of the lands on which we live. I'll do a roll call at this time. Member D'Angela?
Present.
Member Eek?
Here.
Member Gale?
Here.
Member Gibson?
Present.
Member Lawson?
Present.
And Tara McKendrick sends her regrets. Are there any conflicts of interest today for this portion of the meeting? Seeing none, okay. Adoption of the minutes. We have minutes 4.1 and 4.2. I'll do these in block. Minutes of the public board meeting from January 27th and the minutes of the Public Finance Committee meeting from Thursday, February the 10th, moved by members D'Angela and Eek. That the minutes of the Public Finance Committee meeting held Thursday, February 10th, and the meeting of January 27th be adopted. Any questions on those? Anyone opposed to move accepting those? Okay, that'll be carried for those two. The board chair's report. On behalf of the board, I'd like to welcome Dwayne Sprague to the meeting. Dwayne is with the Inspectorate of Policing at the Ministry of the Solicitor General, and he serves as a backup policing service advisor to Zone 4 police boards in Ontario. He's at our meeting today as part of a routine visit by police services advisors to police boards across the province. Ron Leclerc is attending another police service board meeting being held at the same time today, so we're pleased that Dwayne has come all the way back to visit us here in Niagara. And if anybody has any questions for him, we can bring that up after. The Canadian Association of Police Governance hosts monthly webinars as part of its educational strategy to keep police boards and police executives across Canada apprised of issues currently impacting the policing community. On February the 15th, the board attended a webinar session entitled Understanding the Thin Blue Line and What It Means for Police Governance Authorities. The next webinar is scheduled for March the 3rd from 1 to 3, entitled Police Governance in Crisis. And there is a second webinar scheduled for March 17th from noon to 1 p.m. entitled Churn at the Top, Why It Is So Hard to Get and Keep the Right Chief. I don't think we have that issue here. Connection details will be provided closer to the webinar dates. On March the 2nd, the Ontario Association of Police Services Board will be holding their Zone 4 quarterly meeting from 9 to 11, and that'll be by Zoom. Zone 4 consists of a total of 14 police service boards, including municipal and OPP contract boards and First Nations police governance bodies that are located within the regions of the counties of Brant, Haldimand, Halton, Hamilton, Niagara, Norfolk, and Oxford. These quarterly engagements allow boards with a certain geographic area to meet for the purpose of discussing matters related to policing governance. On March the 7th and 8th, the Police Association of Ontario will be hosting its 2022 Employment Conference. This will be held at the Sheridan Parkway Toronto North Hotel. The conference sessions will provide comprehensive updates on crucial issues for the perspectives of associations and management, as well as discussions on emerging issues and legal developments. Our board's bargaining committee, Chair Jen Lawson, board member Kevin Gibson, and myself will be representing the board at the event. There will also be a presentation made by bargaining Chair Lawson and Niagara Regional Police Association CAO Leanne McClay about the 6-year contract settlement for the uniform and civilian members of the Niagara Regional Police Service. On February the 22nd, the Niagara Regional Police Service attended the Port Colborne City Council meeting to provide a presentation about policing operations. This was a result of a motion passed at our December 2021 police board meeting, requesting the service to attend council meetings for each of Niagara's local municipalities to address any local police related questions or concerns specific to each municipal council. In addition, any board members who represent or reside in the respective municipality will be attending the council meeting as our board representative for this important initiative. Port Colborne's presentation marks the first of 12, and the remaining presentations to Niagara's local councils will take place throughout this year. To date, council presentations have been scheduled as follows. Fort Erie will be February 28th, Niagara Falls, March 1st, Town of Lincoln, March 7th, City of Thorold, March 8th, West Lincoln, March 28th, Welland, April 5th, Wainfleet, April 19th, and Niagara Lake, May the 30th. As you know, the board has been meeting virtually since March of 2020 due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Given the recent announcement from the province about easing public health measures, I'm pleased to advise that the board planning to return to in-person meetings will start at our next regularly scheduled monthly meeting. There are no committee meetings scheduled for the next month. The next board meeting will be held Thursday, March 24th at 9 a.m. and it will be held in the community room at Niagara Regional Police Headquarters. The number of people allowed to attend the meeting in person will be dependent on provincial regulations in place at that time. However, as with all our meetings, they will continue to be live streamed on the board's YouTube channel and posted on our website for public viewing. And that ends my report. Any questions, members? Member Gale?
Chair, I thought you said Niagara Lakes meeting is May 30th, or was it March 30th?
Niagara Lake, May the 30th.
Oh, it's that late, eh?
Yep.
Okay. Thanks.
Yep, no problem. Reports from the chair or the chief of police, Chief McCullough.
Thank you, Chair Steele. Good morning, board members. Good morning, Mr. Sprague. I'll start off with a positive news story for some recent recognition that the service received from the United Way. I'm pleased to advise that United Way Niagara has announced that the Niagara Regional Police Service has been chosen to receive the Organization of the Year Award for our commitment to the United Way in 2021. The award is presented to an organization that has achieved success by implementing outstanding key best practices and has taken a strategic, well thought out approach to their workplace campaign. Thanks to the generosity of our members and the unwavering commitment of Constable Joanne Carter, who managed our internal workplace campaign, the Niagara Regional Police Service was one of only a few organizations that saw an increase in the funds raised in this year's campaign. I'd be remiss if I didn't thank Director Akrama School for his longstanding commitment as a member of the United Way Board of Directors, which certainly strengthens the connection between our two organizations and our shared goal to make Niagara a better place for all residents. It's been my privilege to serve as the campaign chair for this year's United Way campaign at a time, quite frankly, when the needs in our community have never been greater. My sincere thanks to the many volunteers, donors, and workplaces across the region for their efforts to support the United Way so that they can continue to support the more than 125 social service programs that are so vital in serving some of the most vulnerable in our community. Excuse me. The service is truly honored to receive this award, and we will continue to be a strong supporter and advocate for the United Way and the tremendous work that they do to make Niagara a better place to live, work, and raise a family. The award will be presented at some point in the near future. No date has been set. I'll move on to our 2022 homicide statistics. So far in 2022, we have not had a homicide, and during the reporting period from January 26th to February 22nd, we have had 2 attempt homicides. And just to recap from our previous year totals, in 2021, we had 6 homicides, 2020, we had 5, 2019, we had 7, and in 2018, we had 2 homicides. I'll give a little bit of information to the board with respect to the 2 attempt homicides that I referenced. The first relates to an incident that happened on Wednesday, February 2nd. Uniform officers were called to a hotel on Lundy's Lane in Niagara Falls for a shooting. Upon arrival, an adult male was found to be suffering from a gunshot wound. Male was transported to an out-of-region hospital for treatment and is expected to survive. Investigation has identified 2 individuals responsible for the shooting: Nico Luigi Bodine, 26 years, and Kathleen Bacon, 25 years. Both of Hamilton are currently wanted on outstanding warrants for attempt murder while using a firearm. and that investigation continues. The second relates to an incident that happened on Wednesday, February 9th. Uniformed officers were called to a residence on Arid Street near Drummond Road in Niagara Falls for an assault. Upon arrival, a male victim in his 30s was found to be suffering from multiple stab wounds. The male was transported to a hospital for what was believed to be life-threatening injuries. However, the male now is expected to survive. Investigation led to the arrest of a 36-year-old male and a 49-year-old male for various offenses, including attempt murder, and that investigation also continues. Just some information with regards to some traffic fatality statistics. There were 2 fatal motor vehicle collisions and no life-threatening injury motor vehicle collisions in the month of January. So historically, in 2021, we had 21 fatalities. 2020, we had 16. In both 2018 and 2019, we had 13, and in 2017, we had 16. Some information about those 2 traffic fatalities. The first, on Monday, January 3rd, officers responded to a report of a single motor vehicle collision at the Peace Bridge in Fort Erie. Investigation determined that a 36-year-old male was operating his motor vehicle on the Peace Bridge at a high rate of speed from the United States into Canada. The motor vehicle collided with the toll booth and briefly caught fire. The lone occupant of the vehicle was pronounced deceased at the scene. The investigation continues by our collision reconstruction unit. And the second relates to an incident that happened on Tuesday, January the 11th. Officers responded to a collision at East Main Street and McAlpine Avenue in Welland. Initial investigation determined that an 83-year-old male cyclist was riding his bicycle on East Main Street. Also at this time, a 42-year-old male was operating a motor vehicle eastbound on Main Street East. The cyclist entered into the path of the motor vehicle, which resulted in a collision. The cyclist was transported to hospital where he succumbed to his injuries the following day. The driver of the motor vehicle was not injured. And that investigation continues again by our collision reconstruction unit. A couple of items in the news. The service continues to investigate the disappearance of missing 37-year-old Katrina Blagdon of St. Catharines. Katrina was last seen on December 31st, 2021 in the area of Van Sickle Road North and Martindale Road in St. Catharines. Since her disappearance was reported, the service has deployed dedicated search teams from our Marine unit, the Canine unit, and detective offices to attempt to determine Katrina's last whereabouts. Police, with the assistance of Katrina's family, remain very concerned for her welfare and are requesting public's help in locating her. On February 14th, detectives released a video appeal from Katrina's family seeking information. The video can be found on our Niagara Regional Police website and our social media channels. And we ask that anyone with information as to Katrina's whereabouts to please reach out to investigators. In January of 2022, detectives from the 1 District Detective Office and the Opioid Enforcement and Education Unit began an investigation into the death of a 24-year-old male. The male died in his St. Catharines home. His death has been determined to have been directly caused by the consumption of an opioid. As a result of the investigation, a 45-year-old female from St. Catharines was arrested on February 14th. And is charged with trafficking a controlled substance and causing death by criminal negligence. The accused is a family member of the deceased, and she is not being identified to protect the identity of the deceased. And then the last item I want to mention is regarding the grandparent scam that I'm sure many have heard about. Detectives from our central fraud unit continue to investigate incidents of the Grandparent Scam in Niagara. Since February 2nd, 2022, there have been 44 documented incidents of scammers targeting seniors in our community. In 10 incidents, offenders were able to steal more than $120,000. In another 34 attempts, scammers tried unsuccessfully to steal over $200,000 from vulnerable victims. In an effort to protect vulnerable victims from these scams, we would encourage the public to take an NRP Me +3 approach to these types of scams. And by that, we mean seek out information from an official source, educate yourself, and educate 3 persons in your life who may be vulnerable to becoming victims of a scam like this. You'll see us use the hashtag NRP Me +3 on our social media posts in our continuing efforts to educate the public and prevent further victims of these scams. And Mr. Chair, that concludes my report for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief McCullough. I have Member Gale for a question.
Whatever you want to call me. So
Well,
Chief,
it says Councillor Gale below your on your screen. It says.
oh, it does. Hey, yeah. Whatever you want to call me, Chair. But regardless of that, Chief, on your last point, through you, Chair, to the Chief, on that last point, the grandparent scam, I thought they arrested somebody for this. Does that mean that it's still widespread?
Yeah, I'll confirm through Deputy Flynn. I believe we have made an arrest, but the reality is that there's more than one person that are often involved in these types of scams. So, you know, obviously we want to get the word out to as many people as we can to prevent these types of occurrences from happening. And we know seniors typically are quite vulnerable to these types of scams. They're high pressure. They often happen late at night, and they are very convincing on the phone, trying to let them know that if one of their grandchildren has been arrested, they need to be bailed out and they need money. And, you know, it's a sad situation.
So Chief, this is different because it's not Russians from afar doing something like this. These people physically come to your house after they set this up. At least this is what I thought I read about this. So is there, I'll defer to you and the chair's thing. Should you recognize this son, I think it was, or grandson, that came to the aid of his grandparents? So I'm reading this story right. To get publicity out there, can we recognize this person or something? Because I thought this was done and gone. I know things come back and forth.
Yeah, we can look at that with our corporate communications unit. And, you know, obviously we don't want to release any information without the consent of those involved. But, you know, obviously the more we can do to educate the public and prevent further victims, we're all for that.
Yep. And I just thought the story out there would tell people to go to, or kids to go and tell their grandparents, you know, you get a call like this, please call us. Don't do anything. That story might work. So my next point, Chair, our chief, I guess I'm the only one left that was here when this chief was selected. And when you were talking about the United Way, I was hoping you would touch on that you're the fundraising campaign chair. And when you picked that job, I thought you were crazy, putting it bluntly, because of your time and with COVID and all the other things. But your name means something, and your community involvement really means something. And I know you gave credit to Akram, and naturally, but it's you, sir, that you're humble. But I'm just saying that you bring this to us. And I'm saying this also because Dwayne Sprague is here. Dwayne's a lot younger than me, and he'll be around for a while. And I know, Brian, you and I won't live forever. And this is my last year, so I can say whatever I want right now within reason. But you have been community-minded from day one. And the way you have handled things in the way of the anti-vaxxer protests, where you didn't march in and arrest everybody, and the bridge convoy, I heard from Mayor Redekop in the papers or whatever, the great job. It falls under you for these things, and your relationships with the municipalities and the mayors. I'm just saying, good job, Brian, on this. You deserve kudos for stepping up for this type of thing. And one more point, Dwayne, while you're up here, if this guy is not considered after he retires, and I hope he's here for many, many years, to be some type of consultant for the province or for whatever, we're crazy. Now, Brian, you'd be crazy to take that, but I'm just saying that, Dwayne, I hope that this man's name comes up for future endeavors. And Brian, I'm not saying retire tomorrow. You get what I mean on this. So kudos to you, Brian. I think Dwayne wants to speak.
The chief would have my vote for sure. Absolutely, Councilor Gale. 100%.
Okay, so I've said enough. Congratulations, Chief.
Thanks, Member Gale. Much appreciated. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Appreciate that. Just to pick up on a point that Member Gale brought up, just if Stephanie, if she's quite available there, on these scams, I know the NRP puts out their communications. I receive those as chair, but I also pass them along to my communications team here in the city of Port Colborne. Are we seeing that most municipalities share this on their communications, whether it's social media, their websites, etc.? Or Brian, if you want to answer that.
Well, Stephanie, I'll turn to you if you're able to provide any further comment on that.
In regards to, I'd be certainly happy to share the key messaging, not a problem at all.
No, really what I was asking,
Yeah.
When we put it out as the NRP, our municipality, again, Port Colborne picks it up because I'm directly involved and I get those right away from you. But are the other 11 municipalities picking this up and getting it out there? Do you know?
We do have a communication together. I can make sure that others are receiving that as well.
Okay, I appreciate that. Member Gibson?
Yeah, Bill, I can say historically that I haven't seen it on our website and I'm not getting it here. So those are things that I would love to get up, topical to the day on our website and out to the public for sure. So yeah, we're not getting it, but love to do so in the future.
Okay, good. All right, between Deb and Stephanie, if we can get those to each municipality's, whether it's the mayor's office or communications department, whoever you guys deal with at those municipalities, because we get it normally through just our regular police email that we get, where I see them. So, okay, great, thanks. Any further questions? Member D'Angelo.
Just along that point of distributing that information regarding the scams, the scam alerts, I throw those on a couple of community Facebook pages that I know our community looks at. It's in our, we have a virtual or online newspaper, so I see it in there, but I also put it in a couple other locations. Just the more people that see it and understand it, it benefits everyone. So I do that myself because I get the emails from the press releases and anything that's important. I try, well, it's all important, but especially these scams, I try to put that information out so it's educating more people.
Okay, great, thank you. Any further questions on the chief's report? Okay, thank you, Chief. There are no presentations today. So we're on to item 8, consent agenda. I'm going to move these in block. We have items 8.1 through to 8.13. If I could have members Gale and Gibson move that this information be received. Are there questions on any of these items? Member Eek.
Good morning. Thank you very much, Chair. I would like to speak to item 8.7, the report regarding drug investigations. And kind of a spin-off of that report is the fact that grow operation are of great concern to individual municipalities, our police chief and police force, and as well right across the province of Ontario, as we've witnessed through our Ontario Association of Police Service organization. And I know that, Chair, that you sent a letter off to the federal government, the health minister, regarding the lack of controls surrounding the operation of these grow ops and information, the lack thereof. And I guess my question to you is, have you had a response from the federal government? And if so, what that might be? Thank you.
Thanks, Member Eek. The city of Port Colborne received a response, which we had at our meeting on Tuesday. And I commented on that letter quite frankly, it was very disappointing. They really didn't answer any of the questions that we had asked as the city. But Deb, did we receive one through the police services yet, a response with regards to what we sent? I haven't seen.
Yeah. Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. We wrote to the federal health minister back in November 4th, 2020, and we received an email response from the Minister of Health in June of 2021. And they just, were acknowledging the concerns that we've raised with them. But I'd be happy to recirculate it. I know it did appear at a board agenda at that time, but that was quite some time ago. So I'd be happy to recirculate that.
Yeah, okay. I do. Now that you say that, I do vaguely remember that. But so remember, the letter that we received in Port Colborne was probably very similar. And as I said it as the mayor, it was full of fluff. It didn't answer any of the concerns that the municipalities have raised, the chief and his staff have raised, other municipalities across Ontario, specifically in the Norfolk region. We've all heard it. It's been brought up at our Zone 4 meeting. It's been brought up across Niagara with all municipalities. So we're going to reach out to MP Badaway because he's our MP for the city of Port Colborne. And Vance has, he was mayor here in Port Colborne. He knows the issues. They would not answer the issue of having these licenses released after they applied to a municipality for whatever bylaw changes or building permits they need. They give them the license first, and then we find out that their distances are too close to residential areas or other homes and so on and so forth. They're not getting building permits for major renovations to buildings, and they would not answer that. So we were very disappointed. So, and I know, Deb, it was brought up by one of the members of Zone 4. I saw an email going back and forth between you and I apologize, I can't remember the person's name, but it's been, and Deb had replied to them that stated that we had sent our letter. So I'm sure this is going to come up again at our next Zone 4 meeting.
Thank you very much, Chair Steele, but it's actually shameful what's really going on. This is not that our region is being ignored. It's all regions right across Ontario and from the federal government. And I mean, they were so quick and hard to put it in with the election, I guess, prior to the last one. And just putting lack of controls when you initiate such a prominent and large program. I mean, drugs really are a problem right across the province. And I know in St. Catharines, the opioid crisis is probably one of the highest in Ontario. So, I mean, it is. I guess I'll just leave it. It's shameful, the lack thereof, and the failure to really, when you implement something, and when you implement a bylaw in your municipality, the question is, how do you control it? What are the resources to control that bylaw and make it function? And really, we've implemented a marijuana program without the functions to control it, as far as I'm concerned. So thank you very much, and perseverance on your behalf for our region and to those across Ontario. Thank you.
Yeah, quite frankly, it's a quite easy fix for the feds. It's just to work with the municipalities a lot better, with a more streamlined, where we're involved prior to that licensing being let to a grow up. Just so that all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed. That's all we asked. But I saw the chief's hand go up first, and then I'll go to Member Gale after that. Chief McCullough.
Thank you, Chair Steele. I did have the occasion to meet with our MP for St. Catharines, Chris Biddle, a few months back to address a number of issues related to policing here in Niagara. And of those items that we discussed, I did talk about the illegal grow ops as being one of a major concern that not only the Niagara Regional Police are experiencing, but police services really across the province and really right across Canada are experiencing. So he was certainly receptive to hearing that information. I'm wondering if there's an opportunity for municipalities because as you pointed out, Chair Steele, there seems to be a bit of a disconnect with municipalities in the process to request a similar meeting from, as you mentioned, Vance Badaway, who oversees your area, but also with Member Biddle and then collectively they can perhaps bring those concerns forward to Ottawa and hopefully affect some positive change.
Thanks, Brian. We'll certainly do that. I'll try to get Vance to set up a Zoom meeting between myself and any members that want to attend and any of you or your staff, and then we can discuss those with Vance and Member Biddle. Thank you. Member Gale.
Thank you, Chair, and through you to the Chief. This is on item 8.4, the authorized strength. Maybe I've missed it, but this is the first time I can remember seeing actual more than authorized on uniform by 4. Certainly civilian is down by 8, but regardless, I look at uniform first. So Chief, 2 questions. Is this the first time it's happened that I can remember in recent memory, or have I missed it? And number 2, are we done hiring? I know we have 19 in the wings, for lack of better words, training on this. Have we hired the roster that you asked us for last year?
Right.
Through you, Chair. It may be just a timing issue. We knew that we had some retirees that were coming forward. So this report is at the end of December 31st, 2021, and we knew we had some retirees in early 2022. So we hired in advance, knowing that we had a recruit intake at the police college in January. I see that on the chart, the 13 pre-hires are included in those numbers, which is again to try and cover that gap from when somebody retires to the time that we can then recruit, hire, and then get them trained. So I think you're quite correct. It doesn't often happen that our actual is above our authorized. And sorry, what was the second question, Miguel?
Are we done hiring? Have you got everybody hired of the allotment that you asked for before?
Yes, that's correct. The additional 40 that we had sought and the board approved have been hired, and now it's just a matter of maintaining that number through attrition. As members retire, we then replace them.
Excellent. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Member Gale. Any further questions on any of these items? So it has been duly moved and seconded. Is there anyone opposed to moving this forward? Seeing none, I'll move them as carried. New business, item 9.1, response to RMON Corporate Services Committee, location of backup next generation 911 and police dispatch center. Moved by members Lawson and D'Angela that the board endorse the request to have the backup next generation 911 and police dispatch center located at 5 Lincoln Street in Welland, Ontario. And further, that the board forward this report to the region's Corporate Services Committee in response to their motion of January the 12th, 2022. Questions on this? Member Gale.
So Chief, there was a bit of a method to my madness there in giving you compliments earlier, because now I'm going to be a little bit critical on this, but my comments will be brief, as I won't repeat the issues that I previously identified. However, most importantly, I want to clearly state that I support the women and men of the Niagara Regional Police Services and the essential service they provide. In this report, there is reference of the need to have backup communications. I think there's been no dispute that police services require a backup communication center. The primary question is, where should this backup center be located? For example, the primary police communication center in Niagara Falls acts as a backup center for St. Catharines Fire, which in turn provides communication services to 10 municipalities. In the spirit of shared services, they don't have a need to build and outfit a new $12 million facility because they have the Niagara Police Service as their backup center. This report fails to mention the possibility of entering into a shared service agreement where St. Catharines Fire Department acts as a backup center for an emergency event that occurs approximately 5 times in the past 8 years. This is almost one incident every 2 years at a proposed cost of over $12 million. This report also fails to mention the possibility of entering a shared services agreement with Niagara EMS as a backup center. And the region is proposing to build a $91 million EMS hub, so there is ample opportunities for police and EMS to share infrastructure. Back to this report, there's no dispute that police services require a backup communications center. But with the possibility of entering into shared service agreements like St. Catharines Fire or Niagara Falls Fire or Niagara EMS, this eliminates the need to spend over $12 million. And if it is a question of technology and types of equipment, I would suggest that the cost to ensure compatibility of the technology, whether it is a local fire or EMS communication center, would be significantly lower than the $12 million price tag, especially given that we have used the backup only 5 times in the past 8 years. Back to this report. There is reference that when we were building the new District 1 station, we removed the cost for the 911 backup center, and that's true. Back then, it was beyond the budget and project management. I can't get into the specific details, but I can say that the cost of the build for the police headquarters and District 1 was subject to significant time delays and cost overruns. It was also subject to significant lawsuits, which the region settled out of court. I want to say that I do not dispute the need to provide a conducive and healthy working environment to our dedicated and professional staff. Of course, we need to support them with the appropriate workstation and space. That includes lockers, parking, and quiet spaces. Of course, we need our staff who provide these essential service. Finally, there are many progressive models that we should be planning for. In Niagara, we have 12 local fire departments, 1 police department, 1 EMS department. Each of these 14 secondary public answering points are downstream from 911. Which is the region's primary public answering point, the PSAP. Nobody is saying we should give up this PSAP. In other words, all 14 emergency departments and the overall 911 system requires a communication center and a backup center. In today's technology, there is no need to have separate centers or to build silos that will further separate the departments. There are many models in other municipal jurisdictions where all the communication center are under one roof. And instead of the region spending over $12 million on the backup center that would be used less than once a year, perhaps these capital funds would be better used to assist municipalities upgrading their radio systems. For example, funding Waynfleet and their fire department upgrade their radios to today's technology, or upgrading St. Catharines Fire to upgrade their compatibility to function as a backup to the police CAO's CAD system, or investing in Niagara's EMS to create the backup center for police services as the permanent backup center. This is a classic example of what is wrong with our current municipal structure. We should always do shared services in order to make it affordable to keep local identities. Because if we don't, we simply escalate and burden the costs to the taxpayers, who will in turn force the province to make changes. Based on my comments, I cannot support recommendation 1 contained in this report. I think there are ample opportunities to enter into shared service agreements with our local allied emergency services. Mr. Chair, I'm going to ask for a recorded vote because I want it on the record for time to come that I'll be voting no on this, please. Thank you.
Yep, no problem. Chief, you want to reply to the comments or questions?
Yeah, thank you. And thanks, Member Gale, for your comments. I don't disagree with your assessment that there would be benefits achieved from having a shared communication center with EMS and the fire services and ourselves. The reality is that such a facility does not exist. There is no facility large enough at present to house the NRP, EMS, and then there's a funding stream issue with regards to EMS, which comes under the Ministry of Health as well. The reality is, yes, we do provide backup for St. Catharines Fire, but they are not in a position to be able to reciprocate that. They currently, they don't have the capacity to act as our backup. We have the capacity to act as their backup. Unfortunately, vice versa can't be the case. Technology-wise, yes, they have the capacity for when we do run into a situation, we can transfer the 911 calls temporarily to St. Catharines Fire to take the calls for the 30-minute transition period it takes for us to revert from Niagara Falls here to our backup, which is currently in Welland. And then our staff takes over monitoring and receiving all 911 calls from that point. But for St. Catharines Dispatch to do it on a sustained outage, they simply do not have the capacity. Is there the opportunity to have a shared EMS, St. Catharines Fire, and I mean, municipal fire services is a whole other discussion, which goes beyond this platform here. But certainly there absolutely is the opportunity for this to happen. Is there the political will is a whole other discussion as well. And so if there is a funding source that can build a backup within the EMS hub that's being considered by the region, as well as a backup, we certainly would consider that as an option. But right now, we need a backup, and we have the next generation 911 time constraint, which is also serving as something that we have to be alive to so that we can ensure for the residents of Niagara and in accordance with the adequacy standards to maintain communications, that we have that capacity to do that going forward.
Gail?
Thank you. And through you, Chair, and thank you, Chief. I'm not going to dispute anything. Naturally, it's correct with everything you say, especially when you got onto political will and funding on these things. And that's where, for decades, the province should have come in and say, share. Waterloo, Hamilton, Niagara Falls go together, or Niagara go together, things like this. And I found, being in politics for the last 7 years, unless it's forced, sharing doesn't happen on things. Usually does not happen. So in this case here, I wish this might inspire somebody in the province down the way to say, we've got these things coming up. Let's take a look at this, especially how technological advances have been made. Whereas we used to have big brick buildings and that, now it's the size of a cell phone that can do some things. And I don't know what examples to give you because I'm not that way, but we know how computers have changed and things like this. So I would hope that the province, and Dwayne is here now looking at is he still on the screen? Yes, he is. My concerns of this are the world is changing so much that in 2 years' time, we might be regretting this decision. And I know you're behind the 8 ball, Chief, with the new and next generation system, and that in the 3rd paragraph of the recommendations, I don't have it in front of me. It says how Bell says this has to happen now, or otherwise we'd be a secondary service and things like this. I get it. I don't support it. I think that somebody up in the province should be saying, in the Solicitor General's office, let's get together on this stuff because there's so many costs going to the taxpayers around on this. So maybe, and the issue is bigger than us on this. So, and this is my way of saying, hey, come on, let's smarten up to them up there, not to us. Let's smarten up and let's take a look at this because we've talked about this for so many years about sharing services, and now we're behind the 8 ball. So thank you for that.
Thanks, Member Gail. Member Gibson.
Thank you, Chair, and through you. Just a point that Member Gail spoke about that I just, now I'm a little confused. I'd like some clarity. Member Gail mentioned that it was building at Welland would only be used once or twice a year. I recall, or I think I recall, that a couple teams would be working out of that building on a daily basis. Can I get a refresher on that, Chief, just for myself and for public consumption as well, just for accuracy reasons?
Chief?
So we have, it used to be referred to as our alternate response unit, but we have, and largely due to COVID, but we've started to realize some efficiencies by taking calls alternatively by having officers take calls by telephone as opposed to actually sending an officer in person to receive information regarding a situation that somebody wants to report to the police. So our goal is to have officers working out of our backup communication center so that it remains a hot backup center, so that if there's a need, we can immediately transition our communicators here from headquarters to the backup, and then we would relocate our officers who are working in that backup. So it is going to be a functional backup, and albeit it wouldn't be used as a backup per se, if that makes sense, Member Gibson.
Yeah, thank you, Chief. And yeah, I just recall, and just for accuracy for the public, it's not going to sit there catching cobwebs, for month after month after month. It's going to be used on a daily basis, was what I recall. Member Gale's points are well made, and I clearly understand that. But I just want to make sure the public is aware of the fact that this building is going to be used for various functions on a daily basis as well. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Member Gale?
Through you, Chief, I didn't read your response that way. Is there somebody going to be there every day using that building?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes. I think that's contained within the report. I think Superintendent Frayne, outlined that at last month's meeting as well. They won't be communicators, but they'll be officers that will be providing an alternate response by being able to take calls by telephone.
So do you have numbers? I'm sorry, I didn't see that.
It's our mobile response unit is what it's referred to.
And Chief, would you have numbers? Like, is it 2 or 3, or is it a dozen of people will be there every day?
I'm sure I can get you the number of people within a few minutes here, or maybe
there's Richard coming on.
Superintendent Frayne is on, so I'm sure he can answer that.
Good morning, and through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, currently the plan is to have that facility going 7 days a week and having members in there between 7 a.m. and 6 p.m. So that would be uniform members in there. Now, the mobile support unit kind of fluctuates on the number of people that are in it based on a number of accommodated members that we have in there. But we plan to have up to 11 people in there during that time period. So 7 days a week and up to 11 members in there. Currently, I think right now we're at 6 members in that unit. Gives us that capacity to do that.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any questions from other members? Not seeing any. Chief, Deputy Forty has been working with Chief Smith with EMS, the fire departments, with regards to a lot of this information that we're talking about today. So that is ongoing. Is it? I believe in basically what Member Gale has said is, should we add, and if the members want to, a third recommendation, that we continue those negotiations so that if at any time we do get all the synergies with the province, the fire, the EMS, and the region is going to build a new EMS center, that if at the time that we're moving and those come together, that we can pivot very quickly and be a part of a new EMS center, if that makes sense too. Obviously, financially is the biggest question, but also to be able to do everything that we wanted to do. Is that something that we can continue to work on as we move through this whole backup and G911 changeover and working with the fire departments and EMS?
So thank you for the question. And in answer, I would say that those discussions, as you pointed out, have been going on for years, quite frankly. And there has not been a significant buy-in by all 12 municipalities. I think we would welcome the opportunity. We believe that there are financial savings to be had by there being a unified approach. We also know that there are significant costs associated for those who are going to continue to operate as a secondary PSAP once next generation 911 comes to fruition. Our goal all along has been to try and be as cost effective and cost efficient as possible, knowing that there are enormous costs associated with next generation 911. So we plan to continue to have those discussions with our partners at the fire services and EMS. But I also caution that there are hard and fast dates that have been established with next generation 911. And although they sound like they may be far off in the distance, Richard can correct me, but I believe it's March of 2025 is the drop dead date that we have to be operational. But back that up at least a year, because we have to have our communication center converted and switched over prior to that, so that we can then transition the backup. Sorry, it's the other way around. Sorry, we have to get the backup done first, so that we can then transition our communications unit over to the backup, get it outfitted for next generation 911, and then transition back to our full-time communications unit. So there's a ton of work that needs to get done in the meantime. So I'm not sure how much more negotiation and how much more all of the parties are aware of the issues. We've been discussing them. It's been discussed at council. It's been discussed with municipalities. For those synergies to happen, there needs to be the political will, and that goes beyond our ability. But all we know is that we need to have the capacity. It's legislated within the Police Services Act, our ability to have a communication center and a backup communication center.
Yeah, okay, thanks. And you're right. I'm glad Bob was shaking his head, because it is the political will. We all have seen how long it took for transit to get done in this region, which, I served on that committee back in the early 2000s as a city councilor representing Port Colborne. So yeah, I mean, this stuff's got to get done. I know Member Gibson had his hand up. Member Gibson? No, you're all set? Okay. So members, I think it's worthwhile that we do add a paragraph 3 to this recommendation, that we continue these negotiations, because I think it's important that if we would hope that if everything comes together, that dollars can be saved where we share services. So I think they need to work in tandem. But again, we can't stop what we're doing, hoping that that'll happen. But I think we need to continue that work, so that if it does happen, then we're all happy. But if we do have to build our own facility because of the other services not aligning properly, then I guess that's what we're going to have to do. Member Gale?
Chair, I'll move that amendment, even though I'm going to vote no on it. I like the amendment. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. That's fine. So Deb, can you put a wording in that makes sense with regards to us continually working, or continue to work through our department. And I know, and Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it's Deputy 40 that's leading that on NRP's behalf with regards to our, with regards to our EMS and fire negotiations and moving forward to initiate a one location that's beneficial to all of Niagara.
So you'll need a seconder for that amendment, Mr. Chair.
Can I get a seconder for that? Member Eek? Questions on the amendment? Everybody understands that? Okay. All right, we have a recorded vote called, so it has, so we'll do the amendment first. All those in favor of the amendment, please raise their hand. So that's carried. So now the motion is amended. Any further questions on the motion as amended? Okay, seeing none, a recorded vote. Deb, you want to run that, please?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. This is for item 9.1. So I'll call your name, Member D'Angela.
Yes, supporting the motion.
Vice Chair Eek,
Yes, yes,
Member Gale,
No.
Member Gibson,
In favor.
Member Lawson,
In favor.
Chair Steele.
Yes.
Thank you. That
Great,
motion is carried. Thanks.
Thanks, Deb. And I thank the members for their questions and comments on this because it is important. And Chief, you and your staff, thank you on this one. Item 9.2 is response to Thorold City Council request for information on NRPS policing and additional policing measures. Moved by members Eek and Gale that the board provide this report to Thorold City Council in response to the motion passed at their December 7th, 2021 meeting and subsequent letter to the Chief of Police. Questions on this one? All in favor, please raise your hand. That's carried. Item 9.3, Ontario Police Video Training Alliance 2022 Business Plan. Moved by members Gibson and Lawson that the board approve the 2022 Ontario Police Video Training Alliance Business Plan. Questions? All in favor, raise your hand. That's carried. 9.4, the annual report, missing persons January 1 to December 31st, 2021. Moved by members D'Angela and Eek that the information be received and further that the report be provided to the Ministry of the Solicitor General and posted on the Niagara Regional Police Service website pursuant to Section 8 of the Missing Persons Act 2018. Questions? Member Eek?
thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Certainly, serving on the Police Services Board has been an honor, but it's also been a very good learning experience. Given the facts that we're continually updated well regarding media and issues, I just want to say that the number of missing persons that occur in the Niagara region, I found to be very, very significant, and the numbers. But with the response to those missing persons, I'm amazed at how quickly the police has been able to find these citizens. But moreover, the credit doesn't only go to the policing; it's really to the regional citizens and the public who are alarmed to the issue and work collectively and cohesively with the police. And 99.9% of the time, it's a successful outcome that's just so satisfying to those citizens. So I just want to bring that or acknowledge that working relationship of the public and the policing with respect to missing person is, in my concern, my thoughts, an excellent program. So thank you.
Thank you, Member Eek. Further questions? Seeing none, all in favor, please raise your hand. That's carried. Item 9.5 is Police Services Board 2022 Committee representation. Moved by members Gale and Gibson that the board approve the committee mandate as outlined in this report and confirm its committee membership for 2022. Questions? Seeing none, all in favor, raise your hand. And that's carried. Are there any other pieces of new business? Okay. We have two in-camera reports that are coming forward to public. Item 11.1, 11.2. If I can have members Lawson and D'Angelo move that in accordance with the board direction, the above noted in-camera reports be received for public information. Questions? Seeing none, all in favor, please raise your hand. That's carried. That's 10 bells right on. If we want to meet at 10:10 for our next meeting, is that fine with everybody? We'll adjourn at this time. We thank everyone for the public, and any questions, please reach out to us at any time. And we are adjourned.